It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Monday in a new month, happy April, everybody. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I started thinking, just things that come from the left here on this April 1st, and it's like, well, okay, these are no April Fool's jokes. Mm-hmm. The president and 99.9% of the Democrats in Congress believe, and U.S. weightlifting also, that men should be able to compete against women. That is no April Fool's joke. The border is secure. That is no April Fool's joke in any kind of manner or form. And we could go on and on, couldn't we?
We support Hamas. Not an April Fool's joke.
Exactly. We support terrorism. Not an April Fool's joke.
Inflation is transitory.
Not an April Fool's joke.
If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
That's an oldie but goodie.
It is, isn't it?
And now time for classic rock.
That's 15 years old. Wow. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Well, because he started that in 2009.
He started that lie in 2009.
Because it passed in March of 2010.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, my mind still works.
All right. Also, not an April Fool's joke.
Before we go any further, though, I thought this was really interesting.
Yeah.
I happened to see it over the weekend, and I just saw it. I forgot that I actually sent this to myself. And I went, oh, this is really good. And it came from the National Review Facebook page. Somebody posted it, and it's attributed that Matt Taibbi said it, but I couldn't find it on Google yet, but it was apparently from some app. But whether it is or not, it's worth reading. And it says Matt Taibbi was asked why he doesn't pay much attention to the sins or threats from the right. And you know that would be a question you would get, right?
Right, sure.
Well, this answer is loaded. He gave a great answer. Number one, there is an enormous army of mainstream media reporters already going after them from every angle, with most major news organizations little more than proxies for the DNC, to the point where the stations hire Biden's spokespeople as anchors. Now remember, he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Understand this. He's
Right.
a liberal on so many issues. Number two, Republicans have very little institutional power nationally. It's not their point of view prevailing in schools, on campuses, in newsrooms, where over 90% of working reporters vote blue, and especially in the intelligence and military apparatus, which has openly aligned itself with Democrats. Even if Donald Trump were a threat to democracy, he lacks the institutional pull to do much damage, which cannot be said of Democrats. Number three, the Democrats' ambitions are significantly more dangerous from those of Republicans, from digital surveillance to censorship to making intel and enforcement agencies central players in domestic governance, all plans being executed globally as well as in our country. They are thinking on a much bigger and more dangerous scale than Republicans. I have lived in third world countries, and the endless criminal indictments of people like Trump and ongoing lawfare efforts to prevent even third-party challenges are classic authoritarian symptoms. The Republicans aren't anywhere near this kind of capability. Last and most important, the Democrats are being organized around a much more potent but also much dumber, more cult-like ideology. Ask your average Russians or Cuban what over-empowered pseudo-intellectuals are capable of. I have a pretty good record of picking dangerous phenomena ahead of time. I feel confident on this one, and that's before we get to the demographic class shifts in the parties, which is, really true. I mean, that's one of the things that came out, last week. You saw a lot of, things on the fact of Biden campaign didn't want people to know who was there. And it's really interesting because when you see the allegation, the big donors for Biden, who wants Biden in there? The ultra-rich white folks. That was interesting to see that comment.
Yeah.
But it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And if I was to add to this again, it would be the specifics of the ideologies that the Democrats are actually promoting. Because when you get down to the minutia, that's where it gets, scary. And, we talk about, the whole transgender visibility thing that hit on Friday from the White House. I don't think you and I were surprised by it.
No.
I wasn't surprised by that at all. I think everything that you've seen in the last week and the beginning of the week, in fact, we were talking about, the mandates on electric vehicles for cars. By the time we get to the end of the week, and somebody pointed it out, they said, you notice that Biden put that on a Friday. He doesn't want that promoted. Right, but actually he does. I think he wants it promoted with the far left. If you look at everything that Biden has done and the campaign has done, because the campaign, KGP, there's no difference between the Biden campaign and the Biden White House.
Right.
They're one and the same. But when you see Biden come out and betray and abandon our hostages and bluntly do it, by the way, that's even not enough for the far left. They want.
Oh no, they're still protesting.
Oh yeah, they're still.
You're never going to appease the far left on that. You're never.
No,
he's never going to.
And so when you see that from last week, when you see the truck EV mandate, that we'll get into the specifics of why that's just horrible, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out, nobody's even manufacturing these trucks.
No. I in fact have a story from a truck stop owner about an EV truck that was on the road. And, well, I guess I can tell it real quick. They have this truck stop owner. They have EV chargers. And it's mostly four-wheel cars that are showing up. So your Teslas, whatever. And they saw a big rig pull up to it and start charging. So they all had to run out. And they were asking the driver, all right, what kind of results are you getting once he has to charge an hour to get an hour down the road? Well, based on where this truck stop is, I'm thinking there's nothing an hour down the road but cornfield. I don't know where he's going to charge, but this is, they had to, and it was in a trial phase. I don't know the maker. The truck stop owner did not tell me the maker. This is part of a conversation that was posted at our website, by the way, separately from the show podcast. And I did not ask her what make or model it was. She didn't say. But it's ridiculous to think that we could have EVs and hauling goods.
170 miles that the Wall Street Journal points out is the range of the big trucks. And because of the heavy load of the batteries, they take...
The payload is down.
The payload has to be down, which means you need more trucks. And they said, the weight's important on these things because you'll damage the roads.
It is. I mean, you got to be, and of course, it's regulated heavily. I wouldn't be surprised. One of the things that's happened with cars and big rigs, everything in between, has been to get the to meet each fuel mileage standard as it gets greater and greater. Then they lighten the vehicle. They go to this composite material and everything else. And I think to myself, there's only so much you can do. Then you get to, and then all of a sudden everything gets to EVs, and these are extremely heavy vehicles. And you can't have that. You lose a huge chunk of your payload. There's some trucks, the tractor comes off the line, big rigs, where the tractor comes off the line 11 or 12,000 pounds, and that's huge. It's one of the biggest, actually, and that's massive. it's a lot of that kind of curb weight, and then you're going to add things to that, and that's just your tractor, not your trailer, and then of course your payload and everything in between. You've got to, all of that has to be balanced, and I don't know how you do that. You're not going to 170 miles is testing range. I don't buy 170 miles. I saw that, but I don't buy 170 miles fully loaded with whatever the payload is going to be.
And we'll get into the specifics of that, the minutia, because the minutia is really important of that.
Yeah,
everything that they point out. But when you take everything last week, it's obvious, because I know everybody. I mean, it was the outrage about the president announcing on Good Friday about the Transgender Visibility Day, and of course you knew there was going to be outrage on it. They wanted that. Mm-hmm. The White House wanted that. I believe that last week and coming into this week, now I don't know how long it will last, that they have decided to go as far left as possible to hold on to their far left base. I believe that's what the campaign, they may change, because when this doesn't work, then they're going to try to okay, he's got to go back to the center, But you look at all these things, they are as radical far left as you can possibly go.
Yep.
The promotion, remember, KGP came out and promoted the Equity Act. Remember, the Equity Act would codify into law that a man can be a woman because the man says so. I mean, this is the insanity, and they promoted that, that part of the equity bill. He wants it on his desk and everything else. And so this is, I believe, and I don't want to get lost into the minutia of everything, and I think it's important to understand, well, we will, but I mean, I think it's understand without getting lost in the minutia of the specifics of everything, that this is, I believe, a decision made probably in the last 10 days from the administration that the campaign needs to go as far left as possible, because that's the only base that they believe they can really hold on to.
Yep. Yeah.
Or they're trying to shore up that part of it, believing that the other Democrats who vote for anything, we can tell them, look, we're going to come break your arm, but it's good for you.
Yeah.
And they believe that Democrats are so stupid, so ignorant, that they can throw anything at them. And so they're trying to shore up the far left by doing all of this, and assuming that it's not going to affect any Democratic votes that they have right now.
Right.
Look, you have, with the radical agenda, if you're a Democrat, and I mean a Democrat in the party, and you look at the radical things that they have proposed, and you see that you're in range of winning again after promoting pure insanity, well, then you look at it and they go, okay, we're in some of the polls we're up by Trump by a point. Hey, we got it last time. We can get it again. It doesn't matter whether the people understand that we're insane on the issues. They're still going to vote for us anyway. We've got a shot. For us to try to moderate and become Trump, that's all the advice. Remember, we did the advice last week, Roy Teixeira, and who else came out and said, you got to move. You basically, in order for Democrats to win, you've got to become MAGA.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah,
I mean,
that somebody on the left, I forget.
Roy Teixeira was one of them. Then I forgot who the other person was. Said, you've got, and the articles were almost identical.
Yeah.
And, I know who it was, Schoen. Douglas Schoen from the Hill.com, also a Democrat.
Yeah.
Both were Democrats. And the White House saying, no, the average Democrat will vote for us. We can sell them insanity. What we need to do is try to shore up the left. It's not working so far.
No, it's not.
But that's, I believe, what their goal is. We need to get the far left behind us, because the average Democrat's going to vote for us. We have done everything not in their best interest, and they don't care.
Right.
I think that's what the White House is thinking right now. But I just thought that was interesting, because when the two things came, the EV trucks, and then the Transgender Day of Visibility and promoting that. I actually, a lot of people got angry. I burst out laughing because I went, "Oh, okay, they're going to the far left now.
Right,
this is what they're doing.
Right, let's just push it.
Right. They think that will work.
Right. No, they do. They think their agenda's working. Announcing the port in Gaza, announcing all these things. These are things announced during an election year.
Yeah.
They're proud of all these things. They think it will work.
Well, when you look at the polls, you understand why.
It's not like it's, 55-35 for Trump.
Right. Or any other race. We pointed that out last week.
Yeah.
You look at all these Senate races are some of these are completely separate. And I know they have Republicans winning, but Republicans aren't winning by 10 or 12 or 15.
And they should be.
Right, based on the insanity on the issues where the Democrats stand.
Right.
And
so it should be a huge, right now, landslide numbers.
Yeah. Based on where people stand on the issues.
Yep.
Just in recent polling from last week, when you see where they stand.
Right.
That it's so incredible. The difference is so incredible on the issues, and it's like, but who will you vote for? I'm still going to vote against my best interest.
Yeah. Wow.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. If you're experiencing sluggish cranking, start your spring maintenance routine by having your electrical system tested by a professional technician. Your batteries, alternator, and starter have been working overtime to keep up with cold starts and thick oil during winter. Continuing to crank a vehicle with low voltage will lead to more damage and downtime later on. Big rigs are big investments. Take care of yours now to help avoid downtime later and keep rolling through to next winter.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, that's just sitting there yesterday, just looking at last week and saying, okay, this is an important moment because it's not just the insanity of the issues. It's that the number of issues last week that the administration and the campaign, the Biden campaign and the Biden administration are promoting, which are all insane ideas.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, okay, they've decided that we need to shore up the far left.
Mm-hmm.
And it was obvious to me, especially when Friday came out, and I went, okay, they knew that the White House announcing that, okay, the 31st is the Easter Day, Day of Transgender Visibility. They knew it would create an uproar.
Yeah, of course.
They're not stupid. They knew it was calculated to do so. Now, the average American's looking at it going, no, you don't do that. You don't do that. But they don't care. They believe that Democrats right now, that the majority of Democrats will still vote for Biden. And a significant portion of independents will, that the most important thing they need to shore up is the far left. Now, you look and you say, okay, but we're not in the primaries anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's over. The primaries are effectively over.
Right. Interesting to say. I mean, we just made it to April 1st. The primaries have been over for a while.
Yeah.
And so we're in the general election, and they're taking the gamble that we can promote we've already promoted insanity. Look, we've sat there and said the border is closed, the border is secure, while, massive riots are going on there.
Right.
And it's pure insanity. If the Democrats and independents will buy that, we can sell them anything, but it's tougher to sell the far left. And so that's what we're going to do.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, we had the EV car mandate, and so, of course, the EV truck mandate is going to be there, and most analysis on this saying this is going to be extremely damaging to the economy and the trucking industry. As they point out some of the stats here in the Wall Street Journal editorial, EVs make up less than 1/2 of U.S. heavy-duty truck sales, and nearly all are in California, which heavily subsidizes and mandates their purchase. EPA rules will require that electric models to account for 60% of new urban delivery trucks and 25% of long-haul tractor sales by 2032. The harm is predictable in return for no climate benefit. Start with the fact that no electric long-haul tractors are currently in mass production. Most electric trucks can't go more than 170 miles on a charge. Electric semis require bigger and heavier batteries, which means they must carry lighter loads to avoid damaging roads. Fleet operators will have to use more trucks to transport the same amount of goods. This will increase vehicle congestion, especially around ports and distribution centers. EPA says its rules will reduce pollution in environmental justice communities near major truck freight routes, but more traffic will result in more pollution. Electric trucks also generate more soot from their wear and tear on roads and vehicle braking. Power generation, and by the way, they will put out, because of the tires, for the extra weight.
Yeah, right.
As we know, just like the vehicles,
the tire emissions,
more particulate pollution into the atmosphere. Power generation and transmissions will have to massively expand to support millions of new zero-emission trucks. An electric semi consumes about 7 times as much electricity on a single charge as a typical home does in a day. Truck charging depots can draw as much power from the grid as small cities. By 2030, electric trucks are projected to consume about 11% of California's electricity. The additional power to fuel electric trucks will not come from renewables, which can't be built fast enough to meet demand. Most trucks will recharge at night when solar isn't available, since drivers don't want to waste prime daylight driving hours. Some 1.4 million chargers will have to be installed by 2032 to achieve the EP's mandate. That's about 15,000 a month. This will require major grid upgrades when there are shortages of critical components like transformers. It could take 3 to 8 years to develop transmission and substations in many places to support truck chargers. The truckers estimate the EPA rule will cost utilities $370 billion to upgrade their networks. On top of that, truckers will have to invest $620 billion in their own charging infrastructure. This doesn't include the cost of electric trucks, which are typically 2 to 3 times more expensive than diesel cabs. Replacing diesel trucks with electric will cost the industry tens of billions of dollars each year, and truckers will pass these costs on to the consumer, meaning U.S. manufacturers and retailers, which will ultimately pass them on to Americans in higher prices. This is President Biden's trickle-down economics.
Yeah.
Ooh. EPA says its big rig quotas are feasible because the Inflation Reduction Act and 2021 infrastructure law includes hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies for EVs. This includes a 30% tax credit for charging stations, $40,000 tax credit for commercial EVs, and a tax credit for battery manufacturing that can offset more than a third of the cost. IRA tax credits for electric trucks aren't conditioned on the source of battery material, so expect most to come from China. Another boost for China's economy from the president.
Way to go, Biden. Way to go. Good job.
By the way, China's BYD was California's top electric truck maker in 2022. Biden officials say Chinese green technology manufacturers are flooding the U.S. market, but the reason is because of Biden's mandates and subsidies. Cue U.S. truck manufacturers, which are now pleading for more taxpayer handouts. The EPA's new heavy-duty emission rule is challenging, Ford said on Friday, noting they will require more incentives and taxpayer dollars. So the administration uses subsidies to justify the burdensome mandate, which then causes companies to lobby for more subsidies. What a racket this is. Here's another one. EPA projects its rule will avoid 1 billion metric tons of CO2 emissions from 2027 to 2025 or 2055, about as much emissions from China and India as much as the emissions from China and India rose last year alone. The truck mandate will do nothing to reduce global temperatures.
Yeah, and again, those estimates are not based on the mining of materials, the delivery of those raw materials, and then the manufacturing of those materials, and as we mentioned, tire emissions. You know, here's the equation. Here's the reality, the landscape in trucking. Roughly 90% of companies in trucking are small companies. They're not going to be able to afford this. A small company isn't going to, because you're not going to be able, we're not going to hand each company, I'm sure they'll try, millions and millions and millions of dollars. They'll want to. The left will want to. But it's going to be, each company is going to require millions of dollars. You're not going to get that done. And the independent small company owner in trucking will be done. Because even if you get, let's just say they got some money passed enough to the point that some of those small companies could afford to fold in some EVs into their fleets. And it's usually fewer than 6 trucks. But let's say they got enough money to fold in, I don't know, a couple of EVs. You're not going to give them money for repairs when there's an accident because the battery will be involved inevitably. And you're not going to give them money when they have to replace a battery. There's a difference in how long a vehicle goes when it's a car, when it's a passenger vehicle, and how long a big rig engine can go. You'll hear truck drivers talking about getting 1 million miles out of their engine. And that's not necessarily a rare thing. Well, that's not the case with small cars. That would be rare for a small car to get that many miles. They travel, if you're doing long-haul trucking, 120,000 miles a year. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think is going to happen to the battery? What about the tires? Well, the massive weight, the curb weight will increase greatly. I was doing some research earlier on this, and the curb weight, it's estimated. I'm not seeing anything from the OEMs, but the curb weight, 25,000, 30,000 pounds for the tractor alone. Well, what they're saying is, well, then the payload would have to be reduced down to a total of, 50,000 at the top end. You're reducing your payload, as they point out here in the Wall Street Journal. You're going to have to increase the number of trucks on the road. In order for those companies to stay alive, they would have to buy more trucks than what's required of them through the mandate in order to stay alive, to haul the same amount of freight. You can't do that. And those costs, by the way, eventually have to come to us, the consumer. That's the way it works. It's not going to be, these government subsidies won't be near enough to fulfill this unicorn dream of having all electric vehicles eventually on the road, including big rigs.
And borrowing so much of this money in the Inflation Reduction Act will increase inflation.
Yeah.
And using the Inflation Reduction Act to build truck EVs is only going to end up increasing inflation and increasing shipping costs. So when the Democrats came out and said, well, it really isn't an Inflation Reduction Act, no, it's the Inflation Increasing Act, as we have stated, because what you do is up front, you push subsidies so companies will get involved in it. Then the subsidies disappear.
Right.
And once the subsidies disappear, well, then, boom, the consumer's going to feel it, but the consumer's going to feel it anyway because we're borrowing trillions of dollars, which will keep inflation high.
Right.
So you're feeling it anyway.
Yeah. There's no way you won't.
And then, as we've talked about before, the interest on the debt keeps going up. And as you know, we've talked about it now, the interest on the debt around $1 trillion a year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so you look at it and it's just like, okay, this is just, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And as we've said before, it is committing economic and national security suicide.
Yep.
What they're doing here with the grid, what they're doing with the whole green movement.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense, but the left doesn't care. Democrats don't care. We've seen everything come right up to reality and push it right back in their face. They don't care.
Right.
They just deny that it's happening.
Well, it's insane. It's insanity. And, you know, what should happen is we should have a long-term energy plan on everything. The grid, these EVs, Congress should come in. You're not going to get that with the makeup of Congress right now. I don't know if you would get it from the makeup of just the GOP if the GOP could do it alone. I really don't know. I can't tell you. But we need a long-term plan to stop this kind of nonsense like this mandate from the EPA on big rigs. We need laws to come in and say, if a company wants to do that, then a company can go in and do that. You know, I have no doubt that the ports of L.A. are going to be, in fact, they may already have a mandate via the state on that, but it's going to be, all the port trucks will be electric. I mean, you know, they had to get rid of basically all the older port trucks, and it's not enough for them. When they talk emissions, you know, that's the thing that kept hitting my mind on Friday when this thing came down. Emissions? Are you kidding me? The emissions of a big rig are like a hybrid was years ago. I mean, they've gotten it down to nothing, but it doesn't matter. None of that matters. And EVs won't matter either. Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, what would be next? What would be next? Let's say they got this EV mandate done through effectively. It never changed. And the deadline came and all this. What would be next? Well, you can't get it done because you're not getting things moved. Oh, you're going to have to source locally. You're going to have to buy from local producers or whatever it might be. I mean, I can see this liberal mindset just being, well, see, we shouldn't all have to, we shouldn't have to live all sprawled out. We could all live, if we all lived in one smaller area and then sourced it locally. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. This is just as, this EPA mandate is just as crazy as what I just said.
Well, if we had 20 people to every apartment, we could then share the cost of the light from the light bulb.
Well, with inflation, you're already up to 18 roommates on the average. I laugh, but it's really not funny. I mean, I just don't know how you afford anything. If this thing goes through effectively, gets to a point without being overturned, yeah, forget it. The cost of everything is going to be astronomical.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. A question that Democrats have never answered. And I'm telling you, this has been a question since I've been in talk radio since '89. Yeah. So it's never been answered, and there's new information on this particular topic.
All right.
So we will get to that here in just a little bit. So much is going on.
Yeah.
It is.
It's getting crazy already into April now. And, it's like you said, you just said it earlier, and it just really, it's like it echoed. The primary is so over. I mean, it's been over for a while, and it's just right now in full-on mode. I can't wait for the conventions.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. It was one of those strange weekends, again, which is every weekend almost these days, and came upon this here. Let me just get to it. Here it is. Eric, I don't know if you saw it over the weekend. The official statement from USA Weightlifting. USA Weightlifting believes strongly in building and supporting a diverse and inclusive weightlifting community. We invite and welcome everyone who wants to use the barbell, while also seeking to maintain competitive equity. Competitive equity. With regards to transgender athletes in our sport, you know where this is going.
Yeah.
We established a policy that articulates how transgender athletes may participate in our sanctioned competition. This includes a detailed application that is reviewed by the eligibility committee, composed of a member of our sports medicine commission, an elite athlete, and an independent committee member. Participants in our national competitions are approved according to this policy. We welcome constructive dialogue and feedback on how USAW can best lead the sport of weightlifting, with the ultimate goal of welcoming all who want to be involved in our sport. However, we will not engage with or tolerate hate speech. Hate has no place in this sport or organization. USA Weightlifting, you should have continued and said, except for women. Hate for women is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know that in 2024, and this is no April Fool's joke, inclusiveness means misogyny.
Competitive equity. What does that even mean? That term itself is a contradiction.
I went through it yesterday, and I'm going through it again today when I saw this. I can't find one comment agreeing with USA Weightlifting in the comments. No. Not one.
Yeah.
On Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm going through. I mean, it's just, they just get blasted.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows what's going on. And all these organizations are pretending that there's something that they're not. They hate women. How can you say it any other way? The word inclusive means hate women when you're talking about the radical transgender movement.
Right. Well,
I'm inclusive. Oh, you hate women then?
Right.
Why do you hate women? Why does the left hate women so much? What is it? What is it about the left that used to, hey, we're for Title IX because women, biological women, need to have the support in sports? Where the hell did you go from that to a man can decide what a woman is when it comes to whether the man should be able to participate in the woman's sport? When did inclusiveness become misogyny? When did Democrats start hating women to this degree, to the point where the president, when he put out his message the other day on the transgender visibility day, talked about how, we need to get the Equity Act, and I'll pass it. The Equity Act, what would codify into law that biological men can play against biological women.
Title IX is gone.
Title IX is gone. It would completely eradicate any science when it comes to biology.
Yep.
And 99.9% of Democrats are for it. So the question would be, Democrats, why do you hate women? Democrats, why do you allow this misogyny of men defining what a woman is? And Democrats, you're listening right now. Your party is insane on this. Every Democrat listening right now knows your party is insane. If they're insane on this issue, why should we believe that they're sane on any other issue?
Right.
But yeah, when I saw that USA weightlifting,
It's insane. Look, we've been saying since the beginning, it will mean the end of Title IX. But if they get that Equity Act passed, that's officially the end of Title IX. It's over. And if any person can belong to a protected class simply by saying so, then there are no protected classes. And we've been saying this from the beginning. Because if you can come up and say, well, I belong to this group, well, then there are no protected classes, because anybody, and by the way, we have to put the word fluid in there. Well, I can be this now and then say I'm this tomorrow. You don't have to. You can assign whatever to yourself according to the left, and you would get full protection under the protected classes, unless you're a biological woman, and then, I'm sorry, stand aside. You had your time.
Well, the one incredible thing, the one argument, and we brought this up before, but I think it's always worth bringing up because I think it's, this is how society has devolved, that, we know the mental problems that many transgenders have. We know the high suicide rate and all that.
Right.
And I go back to the Tom Cotton questioning about a year and a half ago of a Berkeley professor.
Yeah.
When he was asking questions, okay, explain to me the transgender thing. Explain to me how you can say that a biological male becomes a biological female. Those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not saying that. Well, yeah, you are when you're saying that.
That's exactly
when you're saying they should compete in sports. You're trying to have it both ways. But it was just the general concept of it. I don't even know if the questions you were asking was exactly what I was saying right there.
Right.
But he was asking questions about, could you please tell me about this? And she goes, this line of questioning is transphobic.
Yeah. Just asking a question is transphobic.
And he said, what do you mean? I'm asking questions. I want to find out how you think. Yes, but by doing that, you might upset somebody who is transgender and they have a very high suicide rate. Think about this. That the left isn't even promoting that this is because it's true. What they're saying is, we need you to lie. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't lie, and if you don't take the misogynist viewpoint, because we're all a bunch of misogynists, we hate women.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't hate women, then you're not inclusive. And if you don't hate women, then these other people that hate women, well, then they might commit suicide.
Right.
What the hell kind of an ideology is that? Could you imagine? Well, something. Imagine I'm a racist, and I'm very disturbed. And because I'm very disturbed, my lifespan might be shorter. And who knows, I might commit suicide. So justify my racism.
Yeah, right.
Because I might commit suicide. That's actually the argument that they're making.
Instead of focusing on the mental health of these individuals.
Yeah.
They don't care about the mental health of these individuals. That's not going to solve anything.
Well, then as we're finding out, their solution, and that's why Great Britain's no longer involved in it. And you see now in France, they're moving away from this because they're like, well, So in order to keep somebody from committing suicide or having more mental problems, you allow minors to do things that will cause more physical and mental problems.
Right. That can't be reversed.
Yeah, that can't be reversed. I mean, it's pure insanity. It's pure hatred towards women. It's, as we said, it's misogyny. It's femophobia. I mean, it's everything bad. It's everything bad. There's nothing good.
Right.
And the whole thing is based on, well, if you don't agree with me, somebody might commit suicide. So I'm supposed to lie? Yeah. So do we do this across the board?
You need to live in the fantasy. By the way, under the false notion that it will prevent further suicides. That's not the case.
No.
There's no evidence that shows it's changing anything. They don't care about that. It's not about any of that for them. It's about changing the definition of words. It's about blending everybody together to the point of and teaching this stuff to children and then telling parents if your child wants to have genital mutilation surgery, it's okay. And if you don't allow it, we call that abuse. Think about how radical that change is, how far the left has gone in a relatively short period of time.
Why does and this is a serious question for any Democrats out there, which we've never gotten an answer, ever.
Right.
This could be the questions we've never gotten an answer from a Democrat hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
How can you justify the misogyny of this movement? How can you justify? Because we saw it in action. We saw it with Riley Gaines, Leah Thomas. We saw it.
Yeah.
The swimmers are talking about it.
Yep.
The females had to shut up, and if they didn't, they would be threatened. They would be bullied. You'd see the insanity of what Riley Gaines has had to go through.
Oh, yeah.
Hiding on college campuses from mobs.
Right.
Who were stating, you need to let males compete with you. I mean, the absolute women hatred. Democrats, why do you support the women hatred of your party, which is codified in the Equity Act if it ever passed?
Right. Well, it's the same kind of hatred we're seeing right now against Jews.
Yeah.
The anti-Semitism is being proudly promoted by those on the far left.
As a moral high ground.
As a moral high ground.
So pro-terrorism, pro-misogyny. I mean, where did this come from, Democrats? Where did it come from?
And the far left has made it mainstream of the party. You had something in the first hour and starting the show, and it is, it appears that the administration, the Biden campaign, is just going full on liberal. They're looking to just shore up their liberal base. They think it's going to help them. Well, expect that that's going to be the case. If that is the case, expect it to be this kind of radical. Gary, if 15, 20 years ago, heck, 10 years ago, you said, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to promote our anti-Semitism and we're going to promote our misogyny. We're going to do everything we can to get rid of Title IX. Imagine Obama in 2011 as he's looking forward to 2012 and his reelection season, promoting things like that. Now, he eventually got around to the Title IX thing in his second term. He got around to it. He got around to it with a joint edict by the Department of Education and the Department of Justice. They were the ones, and we said then, this isn't over. It doesn't matter if the other party takes the White House and takes the House and the Senate. It doesn't matter when the Democrats come back. This will be fully renewed with renewed energy behind it. And we were right. Now you fast forward here. This isn't about protecting any individual. In terms of, back then it was a student and the bathrooms and the gyms or the locker rooms and gym class and all that. And then it just ramped up. It was like, well, we knew then, inevitably, this is where it's going to go. And we said then, when you get into other forms of competition beyond high school, college, then you're going to get into, I mean, how long is it before the WNBA does the same thing? They're going to have to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to allow men to come in.
Yep.
You know, Megan Rapinoe, while she's no longer playing, she would have to support men coming in and playing on women's soccer teams.
She did.
And that's,
She did
inevitably, she has to do that. So that's where it's going. Ladies, you had a good run. You had a good run. This is insane.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Well, the interesting thing is when you look at where the Democratic Party is still strong, it's white women and women in general,
right,
who support the most misogynist policy ever,
right,
since women got the vote.
right.
Think about it, how incredibly radical it is.
It's unbelievable. It really is.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. Costs are not the same each month. If 9,600 miles are driven one month and 10,000 miles the next, two different sets of costs apply for each month. For example, if your tractor payment is $1,850 per month and you drive 9,600 miles in the month, your tractor payment is costing you 19.3 cents per mile. Drive 10,000 miles, though, and that same payment will cost you 18.5 cents per mile. This is one of your major fixed costs while paying off a truck loan. The difference in this example is only a fraction of a cent, which may seem like small change, but it ultimately amounts to $960 more annually on the bottom line. Because though fixed costs do not go down over time, you can reduce your cost per mile with more paid miles. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Speaking of that, you saw that Caitlyn Jenner came out against the Transgender Day of Visibility and the president announcing it. As I've said, that when I saw that, I went, okay, they've decided they're going to go to the left. It's interesting because on Bill Maher on Friday, they were talking about that, that Biden won't push back on the left wing of the party because he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't understand it.
Right.
That he's confused. He's Uncle Leo now. That's the excuse for Biden. He's Uncle Leo.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Hello.
On Friday's broadcast of HBO's Real Time, host Bill Maher, this from Breitbart, stated President Joe Biden won't distance himself from the progressive wing of his party because Biden just doesn't want to fight with the progressive left wing. He also stated that another reason Biden won't distance himself from the left flank is because Biden doesn't even understand that faction of the party. The panel was arguing that Biden is not actually aligned on policy with the progressive groups in his party, but appears to have a strategy of giving into this faction on cultural issues while touting the economy because he's afraid to speak out against them, and called for Biden to do similar to what former President Bill Clinton did with the Sister Souljah speech. Mayor said, I think he just doesn't want to fight with that part. I don't think he even understands it. Bill Maher then, while imitating Biden's reaction, said, "Trans? What are you? Trans Am? What are you talking about?" Bill Maher added he just doesn't want to fight with that wing of the party. So now what it is, the push, that's the beginning of the push, I think, from the media. Biden doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't understand them. And he doesn't want to fight with them. But it's just the confusion of an old man and an old man not wanting to confront people on the far left who are promoting insane ideas that the American public overwhelmingly disagrees with.
And his handlers are allowing it to happen. I mean, seriously, where does the story go from there? That's stupid. That's ridiculous.
Bringing on the chaos. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight, I'm just sitting here chuckling in my head how, Bill Maher, basically with the Uncle Leo defense for Biden. Mm. Well, he's supporting the far left. He really doesn't support it. He doesn't support anything that they believe in. He's just afraid to confront them, and he really doesn't know what's going on. Trans Am.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, this is where they are right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they send Biden into a store and start shoplifting, and it's the Uncle Leo defense again. I'm an old man. I don't know what's going on.
Or
vote for me.
He's trying to show, in that case, sympathy for those who steal from stores and get away with it.
Exactly. And I don't believe what Bill Maher is saying at all. I do believe it's calculated in the administration over the last 2 weeks, where because everything they've come out with has been as far left wacko as you can imagine.
Yep.
And they're doing it because they believe that with everything that they have done that the public doesn't buy, with all the gaslighting on every single major issue, they sit there and say, we still got 45%. Well, what do we need to do? We need to shore up our far left. Mm-hmm. So we need to agree with them. Look, stop it. Stop it, Bill. The White House is supporting the far left because they're afraid to confront them, and Biden really doesn't know what's going on. No, Biden is far left. Mm-hmm. End of story.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
No, he knows exactly what he's doing. Now,
he's a lost old man. He doesn't know. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that he's a lost old man and then he is the most, you just can't keep up with him. The
most energetic person out there, most energetic person alive. No one on the planet has more energy and mental acuity than Joe Biden. That's a fact. Say that out loud to your friends. Instead of having any debate, just say it out loud at a table full of people with friends, even if you're on the left.
They knew that the announcement of the Transgender Visibility Day, they knew it would create an outrage.
Oh, yeah.
They knew the day before.
Oh, yeah.
They knew the day before that doing a rich, an elite fundraiser for the rich and bringing in Clinton,
Obama,
and Obama, they knew that would create a firestorm.
Wasn't Jason Bateman in one of the? Was that Jason Bateman in one of the pictures?
I didn't see.
Yeah, I saw a picture. I'm pretty sure it was Jason Bateman.
While Trump is attending the funeral of a police officer, they knew that would create an uproar. It's exactly the message that they want to send to the Democratic Party. and the far left. We don't care about police.
Yeah.
We don't care. In the radical transgender movement, we don't care about women. We don't care about the police.
Right.
All we care about is power. They're sending those messages. It's not an accident. It's calculated. They are doing everything they can to try to hold on to that far left vote because they look at the polling and they say, for all the insanity and gaslighting that we've done, we've still got 45% of America that will vote for us.
Yep.
Well, then
We're golden.
Let's try to shore up the far left.
Let's just add on to it. Yeah. And this is it. This is what, and it was Jason Bateman, Will Forte, and Sean Hayes. They have a podcast. And so you have Biden and then Clinton and Obama in that mix, a few celebrities, in this big fundraising effort. It's, what's interesting too is the left, the far left, and leftist Hollywood knows this. Now, you still have plenty of his defenders, but I mean, they're writing jokes about it. They know it. They know what's going on with him. And okay.
Well, if The View recognized it.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. That's all. Maybe they, I would think it doesn't work this way, but I don't think like they do. Maybe they think that by going full on leftist agenda, because they're trying to shore up the far left and that base on the far left, that they're showing him, see, there's nothing wrong. He can still get your agenda done. How much of their internal feedback are they getting, the internal polls? How much of that is showing that the far left doesn't have any confidence in his mental acuity? They don't think he can get the job done. Because what did we see when it was the night of the Virginia governor's race on MSNBC, and the Democrat lost. It was that Terry McAuliffe that lost, and Youngkin won.
Yep.
And they were saying on the panels on MSNBC and other liberal shows, they were basically making the point repeatedly, we need to go. We need people who are more radical, more radical, more radical. What's interesting is Newsom doesn't poll well, and you would think, okay, that's the next logical step. Go for someone who's younger, more radical. Maybe it's Biden and his team saying, hey, help us get these radicals on board. Show them I can still do these agenda items, and we're going to do this, and we're just going to rapid fire these massive agenda things at them over and over again. You can't tell me that what they did on Easter Sunday wasn't about agenda.
Yeah. They knew what was going on.
Radical agenda.
Now, you just brought up a great point, though. And this is what Bill Maher's probably thinking of. They look at it, and they see the polling numbers nationwide of Newsom.
Yeah.
Because you attached him to California, and California is what? All the bad Democratic policies that we've been talking about right now.
Right.
The country sees it. The fear is that the country will see it. I think the fear from the left, the country will, from like Bill Maher, ones that reject what the far left is doing, but still have a lot of, wrong leftist ideas themselves.
Right.
But I think they look at this and view it and say, well, what if they turn on Biden like they turned on Newsom? Because I didn't expect, when I saw the polling numbers from Newsom a couple of months ago, and then there was poll after poll after poll that shows he fares worse against Trump than Biden or Kamala Harris.
I know. Yeah, it's
and you're
crazy.
like, okay, the public can recognize when somebody is, and there's not a lot of talk about Newsom. Most of the talk from the mainstream media is always positive. Yet it's out there. This is a guy that you don't want running the country because look what he's doing to California.
Right.
Well, Biden believes in the same policies of Newsom,
Right.
the same radical far-left policies.
Right.
And so, I think that's what they may fear, that if the public does wake up, Biden is toast.
Yeah. Well, or do they see the public already waking up and think, oh my gosh. Because there's no doubt that the feedback has been there. The backlash to all these radical things, I think is becoming louder and louder. To me, you and I always go back to this. All right, you're sitting in the strategy room and you throw out these ideas. All right, we need to start teaching kids about sexualized content starting at the age of 5. And those who are against it will compare to Hitler.
And we'll say they're for book ban. We'll imply they're for book banning for adults.
Yeah. And compare it to Hitler and fascism and
right.
all of that, while we also support anti-Semitism.
Yes, exactly.
And those attacking Jews and Israelis, and we'll call the other side Hitler.
Right.
I mean, I would think I was on an acid trip.
We're sorry for so many drug references on the show, but sometimes we're at a complete loss for a sober rationalization of it.
I don't know how else to explain it. Because it would have me wondering, oh my gosh, am I sober right now? Did somebody slip something into my coffee?
Did George slip you a Mickey?
Right. Have they found any baggies of LSD laying around the White House lately? I mean, it's because that's how bizarre it is. And then, of course, I mean, think about it. Boo, law and order. Boo, Israelis and Jews. I mean, this is what they're doing.
Boo, women.
Boo, women. Boo. Boo, America. America last. I mean, it is insanity to the point of, and you've been using the bizarro word for a long time. It's a reference to Bizarro Superman, just the opposite of all of what Superman is. And, of course, that's tied to a Seinfeld reference as well. And thank you. You're welcome. Thank you, and you're welcome. It's the opposite of any sane political strategy that you and I have seen over the years. Look, we witnessed a lot of things, and we knew that if you stay on this road, that it's going to lead to where we are now. We've said it years ago. There's no way it won't, because are you going to reverse it? They tried. A couple of them tried. What's his name? That challenged Tim Ryan.
Ryan, yeah.
That challenged Nancy for the speaker. That didn't go well, and they had to get him back into shape within the agenda plan. Then even I think Rahm Emanuel. I have to go back and double check what he said about the identity politics, and you've had other Democrats, not moderate Democrats at all, that have said we can't keep playing this game. Well, when the Queen of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, finally said identity politics, not only is it not bad, it's good, and we need to ramp it up.
It's working for us.
It's working for us. Yes, no, that's important, that quote. It's working for us. Keep in mind, she didn't win. She thinks she won. She didn't win, but she thinks it's working for the party. And by the way, they are still winning some elections.
Yeah.
As we pointed out last hour, as radical as things are, we're not seeing landslide numbers in the polls. Now, November 5th may turn out to be a landslide in favor of Trump and Republicans. We don't predict that kind of thing. We look at the movement. We also don't adhere to any one poll and its accuracy. We just look at the movement in polls. There's been movement since the beginning of February in favor of Trump. But where we are as a nation, based on these radical agenda items, you would think it would be easily landslide territory. Because on the issues, as you mentioned earlier, and we brought to you last week, on the issues, Trump is in landslide territory with the issues he supports. Mm-hmm. Yet, it doesn't reflect that in the polls. Not yet.
And it's just not Trump, because that's why I said look at the Senate races, look at other races where Trump isn't even involved. You don't have massive landslides.
Nope.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, fair share. What is it? It's never been defined.
Oh, yeah.
Again, some tax numbers out there. Who actually pays taxes? Do you know that the latest that they have, 2021, that the top 1% paid 45.8% of the total income taxes?
Wow, that's more than half.
Well, we've always asked and never got an answer. And I've asked it since for 35 years. Not once have we ever got an answer.
Right.
And that is, what's a fair share?
What is the fair share? Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. April Fool's Day. And it's not an April Fool's that you have Democrat political consultants coming out and saying that in order for Biden to win, he must become MAGA. Now, they didn't say that, but the message is the same. And we brought it to you last week, and I thought, no, for somebody who missed it, because they might not believe us.
Yeah, right.
You know, go,
yeah.
Oh, come on, guys. It's ridiculous.
That didn't happen.
So I went and found the Douglas Schoen. Again, he's a Democrat, political consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what he had to say. The Biden campaign lacks focus, direction, and efficacy. Unless the campaign is prepared to refocus itself and meaningfully move to the center on key issues, the economy, national security, and immigration, Trump's narrow advantage in polling will likely be realized. When it comes to the border, Biden should neither hope nor expect to win an election by solely campaigning on the fact Republicans sabotaged the bipartisan border security bill back in February. To demonstrate his commitment to tightening the border and getting migrant crisis under control, I'm not making this up. He wrote this in the New York Post the other day. Biden should use executive action to the extent he can to toughen the asylum process and provide physical barriers to entry in the form of a wall or fencing.
I'm sorry. If you imply that he should build a wall,
Right.
then you're basically saying he should also take on the slogan, Make America Great Again.
Exactly. On the economy. It's not enough for Biden and the Democrats to campaign on positive macroeconomic trends, low unemployment and reduced inflation, without making we don't have reduced inflation.
No, we
We
don't
have a reduced inflation rate, but he doesn't even get it right. But then again, he's a Democrat. Low unemployment and reduced inflation without making a concerted effort to understand and address Americans' concerns about excessive spending and taxation. So, in order to win so far, this Democrat consultant is saying Biden must toughen the border, say he's going to build a wall. On the economy, less taxes, less spending.
Yeah.
Biden must appeal to many swing state voters and independents who are worried tax increases on the rich are likely to hurt the middle class and concerned about the size and scope of government. Wow. So what Douglas Schoen is saying, because you talk about tax increases on the rich and corporations, that's where they still hit all the time. The rich corporations are rich corporations.
Yeah.
Well, here's Douglas Schoen saying people have figured out that when you tax corporations, which are viewed as the rich, that it's passed on to the consumer, which hurts the lower and middle class the most.
Of course.
Ultimately, being strict at the border and reasonable about spending and taxation demonstrates a level of fiscal discipline and social concern that has a broader appeal than focusing primarily on social issues. But Democrats cannot focus all their messaging on social matters when the incumbent president is rapidly losing support with groups such as independents, blacks, Hispanic, and Jewish voters. And this was him commenting on the article of James Carville. James Carville is right. Preachy women are ruining Biden's chances. And you know who one of the preachy women he says is?
Who?
Jill.
Huh? Well.
And one of the reasons, he goes, the First Lady just kicked off Women for Biden-Harris campaign effort this month and delivered a forceful address about LGBTQ plus rights at a Los Angeles campaign dinner over the weekend. However, Dr. Biden's, how well they were taken at the L.A. dinner, it's hard to see how they helped her husband's campaign, giving the dueling protesters both inside and outside the room, with one side protesting the administration's alleged support of genocide in Gaza, while the other condemning its failure to win release of the additional Israeli hostages and American hostages still held by Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
She did raise significant funding for the campaign, which is awash in money, whatever its deficit in the polls, and that might well have helped her trip's central goal. Because with respect to the Israeli-Hamas conflict, the administration's position has become rudderless. Vice President Harris, another individual Carville may have been referencing as preachy women, has been seconded to reach out to the party's left wing and its increasingly prominent wing of pro-Palestinian supporters, but then again, without a broader focus. Well, yeah, he's all over the place there.
Yeah,
but again,
yeah,
he showed clearly when he betrayed, when the administration did not, vote and abstained from the vote in the UN, that at that point was obvious, and that's why we were infuriated last week when we started the show, because basically what he said was, we're going to betray and abandon the American hostages in Israel.
Right. Yeah.
And
look,
that just is reprehensible.
Yep. And look, you have the left here, a couple of people on the left realizing that this radical stuff isn't going to work. That doesn't stop the Biden campaign and the Biden administration from going forward on their radical agenda. They clearly believe it does work. They're being told. Somebody is telling them, showing them internals that show something that says you need to shore up your base. You're losing the far left. There's no telling how many more radical agenda items we might see. Look, it's only April 1st. And by the way, none of this is April Fool's. None of this is an April Fool's joke. This is real stuff. who knows how radical it gets between now and I mean, I've been saying that the speeches, the primetime speeches on at the convention that we're going to see are going to be radical. That's what the Democratic Party has become. My gosh. It may be a lot more radical than I even thought they would even go in terms of prime time from at a massive convention. I have no idea. It's only April 1st.
Yeah, so we mentioned Douglas Schoen column, and Roy Teixeira, who's a lifelong Democrat, who analyzed, what the Democrats should do. Democrats must move to the center on cultural issues. You need to explain that one to me.
Yeah, right.
Democrats must promote an abundance agenda. Abundance means just what you think it means. More stuff, more growth, more opportunity, being able to easily afford life's necessities with a lot left over. In short, nicer, genuinely comfortable lives for all. And then Democrats must embrace patriotism and liberal nationalism.
Yeah.
That we care about Americans first. So that's two Democrat writers within a day of each other.
Yeah.
Both writing columns. What Biden has to do is become, what they're communicating is Biden has to become MAGA in order to win.
They're recognizing that Donald Trump is connecting with more Americans than Biden is. Look, we've been talking about it this morning, and in terms of the issues, Trump's got a landslide. But in terms of the campaigns, it's not landslide territory.
Well, the Democrats cannot embrace patriotism, except the leaders can once in a while.
Right.
But the radicals can't embrace patriotism. America is the oppressor. They lose their entire narrative is America is evil and oppressive.
Yeah.
That's how you get systemic racism. That's how you get the transphobia. That's how you get everything. Everybody is a victim, and there's a ton of oppressors out there, but the biggest oppressor is the United States of America in general. That's why the Democrats talk about getting rid of the Second Amendment, weakening the First Amendment on freedom of religion and freedom of speech, getting rid of the Senate, getting rid of the Electoral College. Heck, after the 9-0 vote, there were Democrats talking about getting rid of the Supreme Court completely.
Right.
The separation of powers completely changed. They can't be patriotic because in order to believe in America and honor America, you have to believe in the Constitution of the United States, and they don't.
They don't. No, we're close. They want it gone.
And so when you've got these liberal writers stating this stuff, it's like, do you live in the real world? Do you even I understand what you're saying about where your party has to go, but do you understand where your party is? You're talking about a 180-degree turn that nobody's going to buy.
Right.
Because it's just for the election.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
You want to lose your base quickly? Do those things.
Yeah.
If he's truly losing his base, if internals are showing that he's losing his base and he needs work to shore up his base, do any of these things. Do one or two of them.
Because what he's saying is they need to reject transgenderism. They need to promote an aggressive capitalism.
Right.
And they need to find patriotism and nationalism. I mean, my God.
I expect exactly zero of those things to happen. Are you kidding me?
That's from Roy Teixeira. I mean, it's just like, what? Again, what are they doing? I mean, what kind of drugs are they doing?
Right. What are you on? What makes you think that this campaign, this administration would do that?
Yeah. And
you've got to be smoking something good.
I mean, you're writing all this stuff, and we understand why you're doing it, but there doesn't seem to be any sense of reality from these writers as to where the Democratic Party actually is.
No.
And it's not just the radicals.
No.
Remember, the equity bill, 99.9% of Democrats voted to say a man is a woman and have men play women's sports.
Yep.
So don't also pretend that the only radicals are the squad.
Right.
Because it's not true.
No.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What is fair share? Coming up on the bottom of the hour. Did you see in that women's game, the one college basketball game? That, and they decided to play the game, but the three-point line was different, one side of the court from the other. I don't know how that happens. Did they miss some?
How in the world does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it was. And they decided to play the game anyway, figuring it would even out because they have to go. They switch
play
sides.
equal time on each team plays equal time on each side.
Right. It's like,
yeah, but
and they don't know how it happened. I didn't see an explanation when I last read something a few hours ago.
Yeah,
Wow. But they said it will be corrected. It was in Portland. It was apparently in
interesting.
the arena there in Portland.
Can you imagine? Hey, we just redid the entire hardwood. You're gonna love it.
Well,
and then it's no, we got something wrong.
When I heard it was Portland, I thought it might be an equity kind of thing. Inclusiveness. Make the 3-point line shorter on one end than it is on the other.
Exactly.
I haven't formulated in my mind exactly how that works.
But
that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah.
Of.
It kind of crossed my brain. Yeah. Wow. How does that work? Now, if it was the 3-point line, then I would look at Shaquille O'Neal. I don't know.
You mean the free throw line or the three?
Yeah, the free throw line.
The free throw line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not the 3-point line.
Right.
Yeah. And that would have to be Shaquille O'Neal snuck in the middle of the night. He changed it. If that were the case.
But that would be a free throw line 1 foot from the basket.
I was going to say,
make sure.
Why is the free throw line right there? And then there's some kind of lowering mechanism it says for free throw only. Bring it down to, of course, for Shaq, you would only need to bring it down a few inches, right?
I really didn't watch. Oh, I did watch. Yes, I did watch. No. I didn't watch the actual game. I watched the highlights. The other thing, I watched about half hour of golf and just I watched the highlights of the Iowa game.
Yeah.
The women's team.
Yeah.
With Caitlin Clark.
Right.
Remember I criticized and said at times they got sloppy?
Mm-hmm.
They played great.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
they just, she had 15 assists. Some of the passes she made were close to Pete Maravich passes.
Yeah. Wow.
That's how good some of these passes were.
Wow.
That and she didn't rely, she drove a lot. It's like everybody expects her to shoot that long 3-pointer. She went right to the bucket a bunch of different times and then was passing it off. It was some beautiful basketball that University of Iowa women's team played the other day.
Well, good.
But I really didn't. I watched a little bit of. I did sit down Saturday night and said, I think I'll watch a little bit of the 10 Commandments, but it's like begins at 6 and ends at 11. Well, that's a long time to devote.
Yeah, for television.
To the 10 Commandments. But it's such a beautifully done movie. I actually have the Blu-ray DVD.
But there's something about sitting down in front of the TV when it's showing, right? I mean, it reminds me of the day,
yes,
back in the day when the whole family would sit in front of the TV to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I did wonder because, it's so beautifully done, where the Pharaoh is, all these people come in and all the nations they've conquered and, come in and give gold and everything else. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching this, go, boy, it really looks like a clean. Well, wait a minute, though. The Egyptians, I go, oh, wait a minute. What kind of sewage systems that's what I start thinking as I'm watching.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. How did they go to the bathroom?
Right.
How far did the Romans get when it came to the bathroom? Wait a minute. What about the Egyptians? They built the pyramid. Come on. They built the pyramids. What type of technical knowledge did they use? And what I found out was, and I'm not kidding, you just had, for the commoner, they had regular seats with a pit with sand. But for the elite in Egyptian society, they had, it wasn't porcelain, but they had like very, very nice seats, but it still went down into the pit, into the sand. So, but I actually looked it up.
The budget for the movie at the time in the mid-50s was $13 million.
Yeah.
A lot of money. It grossed $122 million. And for inflation, that would be well over $1 billion. I think $1.2 billion is what they said in today's money. After Biden, I don't know if that's factored in for the Biden, because that could be like $2.6 billion after the Biden inflation. So, but yeah, that's crazy. But $13 million in when they started that project, 54, 55, it was released in 56.
Yeah.
Who in their right mind paid, with, oh my gosh, green light a $13 million movie? That's a lot of money back then.
And it was so adventurous when you see these scenes and you're like, except for the Pillar of Fires, which was looked animated. I did wait though, and I did see the parting of the Red Sea.
Oh,
I mean, that's still a great effect for that time.
It is just monumental for any movie, but certainly for that time.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, fair share. We've heard it from Democrats for decades upon decades upon decades. The rich need to pay their fair share.
Yeah.
Back in 2001, the top 1% paid, let me just see here, 30... Oh, where is it here? 33%, I believe, of the taxes.
Wow.
Now the top 1% pay 45.8% of total income taxes. They get in 26.3% of the country's adjusted gross income. They pay 45%. So moving double their taxes would be for the amount of adjusted gross tax income is what they're approaching. Is this not fair share to Mr. Biden? Look, it's a question that we've asked how many times? I've never received an answer from a Democrat, ever, not even in person. What's a fair share? Well, more. Well, what would be more?
Right. No, you could sit there and cite these numbers that you just cited to them, and they would say, yeah, but that's not enough. Then what is?
You had the top 10% of earners in 2021 paying 76% of the taxes. This is an analysis of IRS data. They include temporary COVID relief, which skews the results even more progressively. They don't include the payroll tax, which covers low-income workers. But Mr. Biden is making his fair share point about income taxes. Start with the bottom half of earners, 76.8 million returns that reported adjusted to gross income up to $46,500. In the tax year of 2021, they earned 10.4% of the country's total income. They paid 2.3% of all income taxes. Their average tax rate, 3.4%. The next group is between the bottom half and the top 25%, a total of 38.4 million returns. It showed earnings from about 46,000 to 94,000. They reported 17.5% of income while paying 8.4% of income taxes. Their average tax rate, 17.2%. Move up to the top 25% and 10%, or 23 million returns with earnings from 94,000 to 170,000. They reported 19.5% of income, paid 13.4% of taxes, and had an average tax rate of 10.3%. Between the top 10% and 5%, there were 7.7 million returns with earnings from about 170,000 to 253,000. They reported 10.6% of the income, paid 10.2% of income taxes, and had an average tax rate of 14.3%. So they go through all the way out to the top 1%, 1.5 million returns with earnings in excess of $682,000. Their share of income taxes paid, 45.8%, not quite double their share of income. Their average tax rate, 24.9%. Among the tippy top 0.1%, or 154,000 returns with earnings above 3.3 million or 3.7 million, their average tax rate was similar, 25.7%. The burden of income taxes falls almost entirely on the top half of earners and way disproportionately on the top 1%. So what's fair?
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter the numbers. The left will tell you they need to pay more. They need to pay more. They need to pay more. They'll say things like, well, Jeff Bezos doesn't need that much money. He can survive on, whatever, $1 million a year. This is how they talk. He doesn't need that much. He earned the money. I don't care who it is. They earn the money. With few exceptions, that's their work that leads to that.
Understand also that the IRS income tax data leaves out all the refundable portions of tax credits. That's not included in the lower. So if you put that in there, you have right. Exactly.
So you're not doing the whole math.
Nope.
We'll just leave out a very important part.
Yep. All the refundable tax credits don't count in figuring out who pays taxes. Of course, they should, but they don't. But they don't, because it would even be more progressive at that point.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of the equation.
They talked to, let me see, Erica York, a senior economist at the Tax Foundation, points to broader tax distribution data from the 2020 Congressional Budget Office. That year, the CBO says the bottom 60% of taxpayers had an average income tax rate that was effectively negative. Did you hear that? 60, okay. Which means the tax credit made it. So the bottom 60% of taxpayers had an average income tax rate that was negative, which means they got money.
They got more money back than they paid in. They basically made money.
For the lowest 20%, minus 27.6% was their tax rate. Minus.
Yeah.
Which means they got money back. The middle quintile was minus 2.4%. This isn't the story Democrats tell. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse, Mr. Biden recently said, while pitching a new wealth tax on assets distinguished as a minimum tax for billionaires of 25%. In a given year, specific ultra-wealthy people might pay little or no income taxes, and setting up a foundation is a major loophole. Yet the numbers clearly show in 2021 that on average, the top 0.1% of earners forked over to the IRS more than 25% of their reported income. The truth is that the wealthy are shouldering a huge and continually rising share of the income tax burden. In 2001, the top 1% only paid 33.2% of the total tab. As that figure has risen, the share paid by most of the rest of us has fallen. The bottom 90% of taxpayers in 2021 provided 36.3% of the cash. 20 years later, that had dropped to 24.2%. Taxing the rich is popular these days, in part because Republicans are now playing the same tax redistribution game as Democrats. The problem in Washington isn't that the rich refuse to pay their fair share, whatever that means, because nobody can define it.
Right.
The trouble is that with the notable exception for national defense, Mr. Biden's progressive spending ambitions are limitless. Washington could confiscate the income of every billionaire in the country and still not finance what Democrats want to spend.
Right.
I think the figure was a couple of weeks ago, somebody put out a figure of that. If you took all the wealth of the billionaires, you couldn't even pay off the national budget for 8 months of the year.
Right. Well, no, I mean, this is because it's gotten to the, such a point that we'll never get it done. I mean, you know, politically, you're not going to get it done. You're not going to turn that around, that mindset. But again, I can hear the left. Yeah, but it would help. This jealousy and envy. You know, what's interesting is the more people make, the less jealousy and envy they have. And the greater the attention to their own income taxes. I mean, you look at where it was when Obama was talking to Joe the plumber. 250,000, that number, right?
Mm-hmm.
My gosh, household income of 250,000. You're practically homeless out in the Bay Area. You know, with inflation and everything else. What we came up, we had the story of how much you have to be making in order to afford the average home if you're buying a home.
Well, you saw it went up. There was a story over the weekend on it. It's gone up to six figures now.
Yeah. It's the story that we had also, and this goes back a few months. It was also in the six figures range, but I figure where it was. I can't remember where it was. But more and more, it's about, and they see these, you know, they see Bezos or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or any of them. And when the president talks about this, and Warren Buffett has said it too, Warren Buffett has said it and knows the difference in the tax rate. And by the way, I'm okay with us changing the tax law to even that out, to bring that average income tax level, the income tax, down to the investor's tax level. If you want to change it, there's one direction you could go if they're so worried about it. But the fact of the matter is it's disingenuous when it comes from a Warren Buffett or a Joe Biden. And then it was the question was posed to Warren Buffett. Well, you know, you can voluntarily pay more in taxes. Well, no, it should be compelled by law. We need to change the law to force me to pay more taxes. Well, the investment tax, the capital gains tax, is lower. And they can effectively lower their taxes. But we get into the whole thing of, you know, I mean, my gosh, these stats here didn't even include the refundable tax credits.
And when they did, as a Congressional Budget Office did a few years ago, I mean, it was huge. The lower end was a lower 60%.
Yeah. We're making money.
We're making money off the tax system. They weren't even paying
Right,
in.
right.
So when you take that out of there, you even got more of the top 1%. They got to be paying over. If you're talking about the bottom 60% was getting, had a negative 27% tax rate.
Right.
Well, that means you probably had the top 1% paying over 50%.
Right.
But the simple question is, to Democrats that we've asked for, decades, what does fair share mean? And nobody can ever explain it.
They can't. They always just say, well, they need to pay more. They need to pay more.
Yeah. And
they still have all this money. They still have all this. What they don't. They earn that. Again, with few exceptions, they earn that money.
It's a very easy way to argue, though, because
you don't have to give an answer.
You never reach the point of fairness.
Yeah, right.
It's always more.
Right. Yeah, more.
Fair actually means to Americans, to liberal Americans, the other person pays.
Right.
Remember Obamacare?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know we were going to have. We were all for Obamacare. We were completely behind it, but we didn't know we were going to have to pay for it.
The couple in California.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara, ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance, that some companies are practicing along with DEI.
Mm-hmm.
The lawsuits are coming.
Yeah.
Coming.
They're lined up. I wish I knew how many were on dockets.
Well, the
America.
whole, you saw the BlackRock thing where they've been hit with the first kind of cease and desist order, basically saying you're putting out false and misleading statements to investors regarding your practices. Because, BlackRock's one of the biggest, as we know, groups out there wanting to fund ESG.
Yeah.
And it's like, in order to get investors in there, what they're saying is you're giving out false information about the profitability of what you're endorsing, especially all the climate change projects that you're talking about.
Right.
And so we always said that's what was going to get them.
Yep.
And the same thing with DEI. You saw, we'll get into more of the specifics of it. You saw the Texas Attorney General going after a parts supplier for Boeing.
Yeah. Wow.
For their DEI practices. And we said, because that was really big, with Boeing. We said, look, I don't even know what the problem is with Boeing. I'm not inside and I haven't seen any report that I can trust at this point. But just the fact of DEI in companies today, that's going to be something that's going to be looked into.
Yep. There's no way you're going to avoid that.
And the lawsuit's going to look at it and go, well, we don't care whether you practice diversity. That person wasn't qualified to do that.
Right.
Huge lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've talked about is all the insanity that we see each and every day coming from the left and the Democratic Party and how it hits reality. And part of the reality is lawsuits down the road for discrimination and reading discrimination and a bunch of other things, fraud. I got this from Media Research Center. The story last week about BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has been hit with its first-of-a-kind cease and desist order and the threat of massive fines regarding its alleged false and misleading statements to investors regarding its environmental, social, and governance practices. This is basically climate change. That you're promoting investments that have to be subsidized by the government.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, Mississippi Secretary of State Michael Watson and Securities Division of the Secretary of State's office issued a summary cease and desist order and notice of intent to impose administrative penalties against BlackRock. According to the order was issued in the public interest and for the protection of investors because BlackRock is violating provisions of the Mississippi Securities Act. The Securities Division is seeking to stop BlackRock's alleged fraudulent actions and impose a multi-million-dollar administrative penalty, a press release from the Secretary of State office explains. BlackRock has recently asserted itself as a leader in the investment industry to promote environmental, social, and governance factors on portfolio companies. The Securities Division alleges BlackRock, through its ESG assertions, has repeatedly made false and misleading statements to Mississippi investors. These misinterpretations pertain to BlackRock's involvement in pushing these ESG factors on portfolio companies. The company is also cited for omitting important facts regarding its investments as they pertain to ESG in a statement to investors. BlackRock is duping investors into thinking its non-ESG funds aren't driven by ESG criteria and is also falsely leading investors to believe its ESG funds maximize profits. BlackRock made untrue statements that certain of its funds do not incorporate ESG considerations. As detailed extensively in this order, BlackRock stated on multiple occasions, either expressively through publications or by actions, that the company does in fact incorporate ESG considerations into its non-ESG funds. BlackRock made express and implied material misrepresentations and omissions about its investment strategies related to ESG. You can't, when you're talking about ESG, you're talking about companies or you're talking about projects, investments that deal on government subsidies. They can't make a profit on its own.
Right.
There are certain risks because when the subsidies run out, well, you see what's going on with EVs right now.
Yeah, right.
Or even when the subsidies don't run out, you can't make it profitable.
Right.
And so what they're alleging is that BlackRock, that promotes ESG all the time, is trying to make the case that we do just as well as people that aren't involved in ESG.
Yeah.
In the private sector.
Right.
Or we're maximizing your profit potential with this ESG company.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're saying is you can't do that.
Well, that's it. You're promising, you're implying that the returns will be good, that this is good for growth for the company, which implies in turn that if you're an investor in the company, it is going to benefit you monetarily. And the fact of the matter is that you can't make those promises. You're starting on this false premise. That, okay, we can do this because, and, the reasons fall short. The excuse making, that they've come up with time and time again on policies like ESG. You can't convince investors like that. Investors that throw their money at stuff like that are often activists themselves. And they hope and pray because other people are doing it that it will eventually turn around, or at the very least, they won't lose money. And that's a problem. It's a huge problem. And I don't know what changes the mindset, and I don't know if it's generational or not. Because you and I have seen it over the years. The companies come in and the makers of products will put stuff on their products that have things like at so-and-so, at Acme Chip Company or Milk Company or Soy Milk Company, we believe in saving the planet, so we're doing this. And they use that to appeal to people who are like-minded, hoping they found a market in that. Well, investors have a very different, you're not just buying a carton of soy milk. You're putting a lot of money into something that's based on a huge risk, a much greater risk than is being implied. And I don't know why you would be an investor for a company that promotes such things. You're not going to win. You're just not going to win.
And then you had Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton open an investigation into Spirit Aerosystems Holdings, which is a supplier to Boeing. They're one of the world's largest manufacturers of aerostructures for commercial airplanes, according to the company. The Texas Business Organization Code authorizes the Office of the Attorney General to investigate the company's organization, conduct, and management by requesting to examine pertinent documents. Spirit Aerosystems is being instructed to produce a variety of documents relevant to manufacturing defects in their products. Additionally, the company must release documents related to its diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments and whether those commitments are unlawful or are compromising the company's manufacturing process. By the way, that's in popular culture now because you saw it all over social media, since Boeing has had its problems. Now, whether that's the case for the manufacturer, I don't know. What I do know, though, it's in the public mindset. And as you and I have stated many times before, here's the problem. When you look at government, they don't produce anything. We have a government that pathologically lies to the American public. No company could get away with what the government is doing. When you take some of the same behaviors and practices in government that have led them to fail completely and attempt to put them into the private sector, that's going to create problems because the private sector is not like the government. As we have stated before, we find it fascinating that we live in a society that expects as close to perfection as they possibly can get from every company in the private sector, yet when it comes to the government, especially the federal government, there seems to be no accountability whatsoever. And you look at this administration that on the issues is pathologically lying about every single major issue that they endorse. And so the practices, you have to look at any human endeavor. When you see a human endeavor, federal government, that is failing miserably each and every day, failing miserably, you have to look, well, what are they practicing? What's their mindset? What's their ideology? And you look and you say, should we put that in the private sector? In the private sector, things have to be made right. Otherwise, there's hell to pay. Look at the bridge collapse.
Well,
and the analysis of, all right, what did we, what was done wrong there? What's going on? What about bridge supports? What about this? There's immediate accountability that we can't allow this to happen again.
Yeah, right.
And then the government gets involved in it, and you see the government now. This is an article in the Wall Street Journal about how all the Democrats are now saying, well, we need to get this bridge up as soon as possible. Environmental factors really shouldn't count in this. Well, you count it for everything else that's important.
Right.
All of a sudden now it's not important because you want this thing done. But in general, when you have organizations fail and government has failed, education, government has failed. Trying to dictate an economy, government has failed, as we have seen this administration. Private sector doesn't have the same excuses.
Well, they don't. And, in terms of where BlackRock is. And, I mean, they control, they manage a massive amount of the ESG funds. When you look at that, my question is, well, I know in part the answer to my question, but I'll just pose this question. What's the difference between an activist investor or an investor who's an activist, and putting it in and expecting returns? Because there has been, the churn rate is fairly high for BlackRock. But it's still in expansion mode, or at least was as of a couple of months ago. Now the question is, how long can that hold? Because confidence by someone who holds that opinion that ESG is good for business can only last as long as the reality, until reality actually lands at the doorstep. You can't do this forever thinking it's going to run this way forever. Sentiment, by the way, global sentiment on such items might get you there for a couple, 2-3 years, maybe even longer. But then you start looking at the changes in companies or these funds, and it starts to, oh, wait, it's not performing. Well, why isn't it performing? Well, because the foundation isn't there.
Well, Larry Fink said, the head of BlackRock said, ESG is toxic. I can't even say the word. I can't even say it anymore.
Right.
I can't even say those
No,
letters
they won't.
anymore.
They don't even talk to. They don't even like talking to the media about things, right now, because it is toxic, and here in the U.S. especially, you're seeing, again, that churn rate is fairly high for what they do, and I just don't know how long. I don't know where that line is, that threshold is, where the returns just start to look more bleak. You can convince, you can have enough like-minded people. We're seeing it on a number of things on the left. You can find those like-minded people, and globally, oh my gosh, yes. Because remember, investments are long-term. These aren't the pump and dump or the churn and burn kind of investors. You're going to be there for a while, but at some point your returns are going to start to diminish. There's no way that this works long term. You either change the policy to keep those profits there, or you do, you just do away with it altogether.
Well, look at anybody who's investing in anything ESG. It's related to climate change for the most part. And tell me what business in climate change, besides the carbon credit business, which is basically government giving you, government giving you money. Right. There's not a profit being made out of it. The profit comes, from the taxpayer or other companies buying a carbon credit, which hurts their business. But besides, what company, what product are they producing that can make a profit on their own? Right.
Without government money.
Money.
Because right now you can ride the wave on government money, on government spending on such items for a little bit, but it's not going to be lasting.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. Yeah, so that's what is going to all this radical stuff that you see, as we have stated many times before. The worst enemy the Democrats have and liberalism has is not even Republicans; it's reality.
Yeah, exactly.
And part of reality is lawsuits.
Yep.
You know, we've talked about economic reality. Well, you can't continue to produce products that don't make a profit and expect the federal government to subsidize something that is less efficient and productive than what Americans already have, and for Americans to embrace it. And when you come in and do this, you, in essence, create a pseudo-government industrial monopoly, which, again, you're going to have massive inefficiencies in across the board. And so that's what you're seeing right now when these lawsuits come up for DEI and ESG, that you can't make a mistake in the private sector. Not only can you make a mistake in the government, you can pathologically lie to the American people. You can purposely hurt your stockholders, the citizens of the country. You can purposely hurt them and lie to them, and the only recourse they have is to kick you out of office in a few years. You don't suffer any repercussions, because then you can write a book and you're fine. There is no financial damage for not just not performing, but actually lying to the American people about what you're doing and enact policies that hurt them. You can't do that in industry.
No, not without paying a huge price. I mean, you lose when you do that. You can't survive doing that.
If you're in the climate change business, eventually you have to lie.
Yeah.
If you're in the DEI business, eventually you will discriminate, and it will catch up with you in court.
Well, and it makes me wonder with this. There's what happened in the last half of 2023 in the U.S. Domestic automakers saying we can't do the EV thing. Nobody's buying it. And when we get closer to deadlines on solar and wind, we can't do this as a mandate because it's going to kill the grid. People won't have power. That's when you'll see this DEI stuff really take a hit.
Yep.
About to trigger somebody right now. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
By the way, going into the break, I said DEI, I meant ESG. I get my liberal alphabet things all confused sometimes.
It gets complicated.
I think it does for them, or it will. I think you look at it, and a couple of points made about, and some of the stories on the whole BlackRock thing, is that some of the other headwinds have been inflation and other things that affected investment of these kind of things. But I really think there's something to what was happening in the last part of 2023, the last half of last year. And when you saw domestic OEMs here in the U.S. hit the brakes on EVs and say, look, we can't get this done. We want to do hybrid because hybrids will sell. I'd like to see the numbers on those hybrids, and, we could get into that separate conversation, but they are tapping the brakes on EVs. And when you see that, eventually you get around to, oh, wait, we're not going to be able to make these mandates. We're not going to be able to get to wind and solar grid. and I also have to believe that some of this investment in this ESG stuff is about the fact that governments are supporting it with government money, not just here in the U.S., but all around the globe. And investors, we've said this, I don't know how many times over the years. It doesn't matter who it is. When any government is handing out money, everybody gets in line. And so these companies or investors look at this and say, well, they're giving us money to do this. They're giving us money. But eventually it fails. We see how many solar companies have gone under. We see the failures over and over and over again.
What's Liz? Is it Fisker that's may go under and is really selling their cars extremely cheap?
Yeah.
Just to get any kind of cash in there?
Well, no, I think there's been and I have a family member in automotive sales who told me over the weekend that their group of dealerships that's really slowed down overall, not just EVs, but and they really don't deal a lot in EVs, but the auto dealers, it has slowed way, way, way down. And it hasn't been a good start to this year. You and I looked at it at the end of 23. We saw, okay, what was going on? Well, there's this kind of that emotional, I think, push when families say, look, it's Christmas time. We're going to spend money. Even if we have to put it on a credit card, you overextend. Next thing you know, we said, well, reality will hit. January of 24, February of 24, March of 24. That will be the tell when those bills come due. And that happens to some extent every year around Christmas. We overspend, and then the bill comes in. It's like, oh. But this year, you look at that with inflation and the fact that families were underwater to begin with. It's at a point now of, I mean, my gosh. We talked to a friend who's got a new mortgage on a new house they bought. 8%.
Oh.
8%. Wow. The auto loans, I haven't checked. I don't have an auto loan on my new truck, but I haven't checked what the rates are. I think I saw something, an advertisement, 7.5%, 8%.
Wow.
Somewhere. And that's not the average. You and I have talked about what the average interest rate on an auto loan is, and the fact that the amount you're paying for a new car going up and up and up. Used cars have come down just slightly. But then you add to it, if your credit score is hurting because you have more credit card debt, then you're going to pay a higher interest rate. And that's the way it works. And if you're underwater on that car you're going to trade in, that negative equity, as they call it, is added to the new loan. You can find lenders that will do that, if you have a pretty decent history of repayment, because as long as you're paying the interest, I mean, that's what they're in business to collect. That's their profit. But it's really, really expensive overall. I don't know where that breaking point is as a collective in terms of the consumer. But it can't be far.
I know that I was when you look at auto sales right now, and you and I have spent a lot of time talking about the fact that the price of gasoline and diesel vehicles have gone up in order to support the EVs, and people are still willing to spend. But you look at the average cost of any vehicle right now, and I look at it, I shake my head, I go, my God. And I just combining it to, I know what I paid for my last vehicle and the vehicle before that because I still have them. So I know the cost of vehicles going back 25 years and even longer because I know what I paid for my other vehicle before that. Mm-hmm. You know what it was? You ready?
Mm.
I bought a vehicle in 97, $14,000.
Wow.
Then $21,000. That would have been 21 years ago. 21,000.
The old car you still have,
my old
right?
vehicle, my SUV, 21,000.
Wow.
I think the last one was 32. And now I don't think I could touch that one. That was 2017. Probably that would cost me 42.
Your new car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
42 right now. Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at it, I'm like, wow.
Well,
and actually I'm thinking, because I'm the old guy of the show, I'm thinking, all right, when do I buy?
Age-wise, you are.
What did I say?
Physically, well, you said you're the old guy of the show. Age-wise, numbers-wise, you are.
Oh, okay.
I feel a lot older. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I had a woman tell me the other day who's known me for a while and said, you do not at all come across, as your age.
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, because I'm a child. What do you think?
Yeah, no, you're very, very young for 58. Oh, wait, no, I'm the one who's 58.
Exactly.
I'm not young for 58.
Now I forgot where we were in the conversation.
I don't know.
See, you hit me personally.
Now I've got a desire to buy a one-piece leisure suit with a white belt.
It was about vehicles in the back of my mind with all this crap coming up.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm using these two vehicles now. How long do I plan on working for? Because my next vehicle that I want to buy, which right now is focused on 2025 before all the technology comes in to monitor your eyes and your brain.
Yeah.
All the stuff they want to put in, the cameras or whatever they're going to use to read your face to figure out whether you're tired or it's like, oh, my God, that's going to be a nightmare of technology mishaps. And if something's happens, there's nothing you can do. Your car's shut down.
Yep.
And so I look at that. I'm like, right now it's like, okay, I need to get a vehicle in 2025 that I'm not going to drive.
Yeah. Right.
I'll drive it 1,000 miles a year, or I'll drive it 5,000 miles a year. Mm-hmm. So that thing can last me 20 years before I get to, 100,000 even.
Right.
And it's like, and that time I'll be near death or dead. And so but seriously, I'm looking at this because of the price of vehicles and where they're going to go. I'm not buying an electric vehicle. It's not happening.
Right.
Give you an example. On the way to work tonight.
Mm.
Okay. And I took the old vehicle. Got the old vehicle's 21 years old with 245,000 miles on it. I thought it was 49.
Your car's now old enough to drink.
Yes. The cops may not use that as an excuse if I'm driving home. If I grab one of the beers in the refrigerator when we go home and I'm drinking it, what are you doing drinking? Don't worry. The car's 21 years old and so am I.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Just giving the car some beer.
But I take that and I love that. I love the vehicle. I've always just loved it.
Yeah.
And so I said I'm going to get gas. I pulled in and did the tap of the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
It won't go through.
Oh, no.
It took me an extra minute. I'm ticked off because it took an extra minute.
Yeah.
And I'm chuckling going, I can't own an EV.
Or when it says when the auto payment at the pump is screwed up, see the clerk inside?
Yeah. Oh.
You want me to walk 12 and a half feet?
That happened. Because when it didn't work, that happened. And I actually pulled out another credit card, and the other credit card worked.
Yeah.
But it actually said, see the clerk.
Right.
And I was like, the hell I will.
I'm not going to see a clerk about anything.
And that's because that's going to take me another 90 seconds.
Yes, exactly.
And they're saying, well, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine hooking up your vehicle every night to a plug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I have problems with my cell phone making sure it's fully charged all the time. You're talking about my car, and then there I am going to work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, all right. It took me an extra minute. I'm furious. You think I'm the kind of person? And I think a lot of people are like me. And I think even younger generations are worse than me in being impatient. They want it. They want it now. Yeah, we can load this car up in 45 minutes.
Uh-huh. Right.
You out of your mind?
Yeah.
45 minutes? Oh, okay, good. I've come to a charging pump. Oh, there's 3 cars in front of me. Oh, I saw it was the car expert on Fox Business, I believe. I thought she was on with Cavuto. And she just hates electric vehicles. And she talked about, that happens all the time. In fact, she said she went by one charging station, and there's a Tesla in there. There's nobody in the car. They've gone off to get lunch. They're just charging it right there.
Right.
There's 3 or 4 cars behind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there blows your 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, who would do that? Who would just – and I do view myself as an indicator of where the public is going, even though I'm older from the impatient group that gets everything, instantaneously, even though I'm a part of that because I get it instantaneously in my smartphone. But that's where they are. That's all they've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
They never had to wait in a gas line, when it was full service and there was a gas shortage.
Right.
I had to wait an hour.
I went by a charging station, and it was 3 Teslas all on chargers. And each of the drivers, just sitting there on their phone, and I wanted to ask them, how long have you been here? How often do you have to do this? Because we don't live in a small area. There's plenty of people that commute. And that commute, by the way, it's not just the miles that they commute. It's the time that it takes to commute. That would matter. And everything that drains the battery, basically. And I know you could say the same thing about gasoline. But again, with gasoline, no, we're in and out in a few minutes. We're done. And I don't know where that patience builds. There has to be an underlying frustration.
Yeah.
There has to be an underlying frustration. And there's a difference between fast charging and the wear and tear on the battery from fast charging and not fast charging. So if you're an apartment dweller and some of them do have EV chargers, but it's only a handful.
Don't, yeah.
The overwhelming majority don't. And so if you live in an apartment and you're commuting, that's taking up a lot of time.
86690 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, I found the story. California-based electric vehicle startup Fisker is slashing prices on some of its vehicles as it fights to avoid bankruptcy. Let me see. The manufacturer's suggested retail price of some of their lines fell by tens of thousands of dollars. They lowered the MSRP of a 2023 Ocean Extreme from $61,499 to $37,499.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, here's the problem with that is that you can only do that for so long. I mean, you can do that to raise cash now.
Well, yeah.
But you're not going to, that's not profit if you're taking a loss on each of those vehicles at such a great rate. It's only a matter of time before you're gone.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.